The Seraphim are the elite of the Adepta Sororitas. Doesn't matter about Celestians for now, we're talking about the Seraphim flying through the air and firing pistols. They are pretty standard in their profile like any other battle sister. Toughness 3, 3+ save, 1 wound, leadership 7, objective control 1. Their invulnerable save is slightly better than the others. They have a 5+ save rather than a 6+ save. And because they have jump packs, they can move 12 inches. And also because they have jump packs, they can deep strike. But we will get into whether you want to deep strike or not very shortly. There are a few weapon options. For every 5 in the squad, you can have up to 2 special weapons. Well, 2 with special weapons. Every sister has a pair of bolt pistols. 2 of them can swap out their bolt pistols for a pair of hand flamers, or 2 of them can swap out their bolt pistols for a pair of inferno pistols. That is for every 5 in the squad, so in a squad of 10, you could have 4 with paired hand flamers, or 4 with paired inferno pistols, or a mix. The best options for the superior in terms of damage output, which is the main thing, is a plasma pistol and a power sword. Or you could have a bolt pistol and a power sword if you want to keep to the holy trinity of bolter, flamer and melter. I know most people will want to have the hand flamers in 10th edition of 40k. I will be making a case for the melter inferno pistols later. So we have deep strike to come from above. But just because you can doesn't mean you should. When you deep strike, you can be there to complete secondary missions, arrive in the enemy deployment zone, drop onto uncontested objectives, drop into the middle of the board, drop onto the enemy home objective and shoot them there. If it's just for the purposes of deploying something like teleport homers, Seraphim are cheaper. They have the same deep strike ability. But Seraphim have angelic ascent. This. So they can arrive, shoot, and then move. If an objective is not totally surrounded and the enemy is just towed onto one part, you can deep strike 9 inches away, shoot the enemy, and then move 6 inches onto the objective. This is our only unit that can take an objective after deep striking without charging. There are no stratagems to arrive 6 inches away, but this is better. As long as you shoot the enemy, it is basically a 3-inch deep strike instead of a 9-inch deep strike. You can also drop down onto the enemy and just kill them. Then they're dead. Then they're not scoring victory points. This is why you have the hand flamers instead of the inferno pistols. Inferno pistols are 6-inch range. Hand flamers are 12-inch range, so will be in range when you arrive 9 inches away from deep strike, assuming you're not using the Nakmud Gauntlet expansion. And in the Bringers of Flame, you can do this even better. You won't get the detachment bonus because that has been changed to be 6 inches only, at least at time of recording, but you can have devastating wounds on your many hand flamers. A unit of 10 can have 4 sisters with paired hand flamers, so that's 8 hand flamers. Cleansing Flames gives you devastating wounds on them. And if you have a jump pack cannoness, then that stratagem is 1 command point fewer. But what about the reasons not to deep strike? You move 12 inches. That is really fast. The Bringers of Flame can make you even faster because you always have assault. So you move 12 inches, you advance, if you shoot, which you are going to do, then you move another 6 inches, so that's 18 inches plus d6 movement. You crossed almost half the table from a spot in your deployment zone where you were completely safe. And because most of the terrain you see is ruins, you can fly through that because these are infantry. You have immense speed, so you can get to the enemy and kill them without needing to deep strike. The Army of Faith is of course the detachment where the Seraphim are going to shine brightest, including Blinding Radiance as a stratagem where they shine brightly. 3 of the stratagems become auras when used on a jump pack unit like the Seraphim: Shield of Faith, Light of the Emperor, and Blinding Radiance. A line of Seraphim deployed on the table, not in deep strike, they can support your tanks and infantry. When they are not needed to cover like half of your army in one of these auras, or there is a target you want to strike, fly forwards. With 12-inch movement, you can get very close to enemies, and then, if you shoot, you can move back 6 inches so you can be safer. Deploying on the table and then flying very quickly in the Bringers of Flame or the Army of Faith is where you can use the Inferno pistols. You have higher damage, higher strength, higher AP than hand flamers, and they can kill elite infantry. Let's not say tanks, because our melter weapon strength is lower than the average battle tank toughness. Get into melter range and any 3 wound infantry will die. You can kill weakened tanks by using a miracle dice of a 5 on the wound roll. With AP -4 or AP -5 in the Army of Faith with Divine Guidance, you can bring it down. And score the secondary mission, bring it down. Enemies trying to tie us down by engaging in combat did not reckon with Inferno pistols fired at point blank range. Enemies charging 10 Seraphim may not be able to kill them all. They may kill half of them. That still leaves your superior and several sisters with important hand flamers or Inferno pistols ready to fire in our shooting phase, and we don't need to fall back. And then if you kill the enemy, you are free. You get to move after shooting. Or we can charge. So after killing the enemy with pistols, where we have no penalties to hit, unlike someone using big guns never tire, then we can use Angelic Ascent to move away, or we can charge something else. I also put my Army of Faith Seraphim on the table because if you want them to be in Deep Strike, if you think, okay, I've had no secondaries about being in the enemy deployment zone, or sabotaging buildings in the enemy deployment zone, I'm going to probably draw that as a secondary mission, so Angelic Descent, I take them up into the sky, and I will come back down somewhere else in my next turn. So you can do that in preparation for secondary missions, or if you see an objective no longer defended by the enemy, we go up and then back down. So in the Bringers of Flame, your Seraphim are your damage dealing unit. In the Army of Faith, they're a great support unit and damage dealing unit. They do both. In the Hallowed Martyrs, the Champions of Faith and the Penitent Host detachment, their job is to complete secondary missions like deploy teleport homers or establish locus, whatever you want to call it, or sneak onto objectives that aren't wholly covered by the enemy. The Champions of Faith and the Penitent Host has a stratagem to fall back and shoot with no additional requirements. That's Indefatigable Dedication or Boundless Zeal. You don't need to be a Penitent unit to use Boundless Zeal. You don't need to have been blessed by throwing a miracle dice at them to use Indefatigable Dedication. I know we can fire our pistols at point blank range, but if we need the distance to get onto an objective and it's like 8 inches away, we can fall back and shoot. If it was 18 inches away, we could move 12 inches and then with Angelic Ascent, move another 6 inches after shooting. And because we fly, we can get out of engagement range without taking a desperate escape test. In the Hallowed Martyrs, I would stay still and use pistols. Assuming you have taken casualties, you are going to get +1 to hit and maybe +1 to wound as well. Now your Inferno pistols can damage vehicles on a 4+. There are 2 characters that can join the Seraphim. The Canoness with Jump Pack and Saint Celestine. As soon as the Canoness with Jump Pack came along, Celestine became a lot less viable as a leader for the Seraphim. In the Bringers of Flame detachment, the Canoness can make your Cleansing Flames stratagem cost only 1 point, therefore it's going to be much more useful to use it. It doesn't just have to be the turn you arrive from reserves, it is any time you want. So fly out of your deployment zone, advance, burn the enemy with Cleansing Flames, and then move again. Your Canoness with Jump Pack would want to have a Hand Flamer if you're going to be joining the Seraphim and the Bringers of Flame and using Cleansing Flames because it is 1 more torrent weapon. In the Penitent Host, you can use an enhancement to make your Canoness a Penitent model. Seraphim are not Penitent models. The Canoness would be a Penitent model, but the unit is now a Penitent unit. You have to be careful to check if abilities and stratagems refer to models or units. So Purity of Suffering is a stratagem that can be used on a Penitent unit, they apply, but it only gives Penitent models a 4+ Feel No Pain. But Boundless Zeal just got better. You are now a Penitent unit, so you can fall back and shoot and charge. However, when it comes to picking a model for the Catechism of Divine Penitence, I don't often pick the Canoness with Jump Pack. Or if you do, you could add her to a Repentia unit. Having a character fly ahead of the rest of the unit, still in unit coherency, but that can mean your charges are much shorter. And all of the stratagems you want to use on the Repentia are now 1 command point cheaper. But it is an option for your Penitent Host Seraphim. In the Army of Faith, you want the Canoness with Jump Pack because all of the cool stratagems are now cheaper. You can have the aura of Death Guard don't get to play. It's important that it is free because it allows you to use other stratagems in your army. If the command point you get at the start of every turn is used on that stratagem every turn, you're not going to have any other command points to use any other stratagem. But this is the Army of Faith. All of the stratagems are going to be good for the Seraphim. Divine Guidance will make your hand flamers and bolt pistols AP -1. And you have Faith and Fury, so that if you want to charge in with your Seraphim and importantly Canoness, it doesn't cost any command points. And if you want to get the unit off the board and come back later, Angelic Descent, listen, all of these stratagems are 1 command point and now become free in this detachment with the Canoness. As Saint Celestine is a jump pack unit and one we have shenanigans relating to wound allocation with if she is by herself, not in a Seraphim unit, we want to have Celestine alone. And as another jump pack unit, Celestine can do all of the stratagems and auras that the Seraphim can do, but now you have another unit that they can emanate from. In the Hallowed Martyrs detachment, either the Canoness with the jump pack or Celestine are decent options. If you lose several Seraphim, that will increase the wound chance of your character because you're now below half strength. Units of 10 work better in the Hallowed Martyrs because you are more likely to take casualties so that you are below half strength but not dead. 9 Seraphim dead will give your character +1 to hit and +1 to wound. 10 Seraphim dead means no bonuses at all for your character because they're now alone, back at starting strength. Again, Celestine can work better alone in the Hallowed Martyrs detachment. You assign wounds to Celestine until she dies and then should get back up. And after that you assign wounds to the Gemini until both are destroyed, and then Celestine gets +1 to wound because her unit is below half strength. The Hallowed Martyrs is quite a combat-focused detachment. 3 of the stratagems are used in the fight phase. So if you want a Canoness with jump pack to make stratagems cheaper, put her with some Zephyrim. You don't need to add a character to the Seraphim. Same as in the Champions of Faith detachment. Yeah, you can use the stratagems and then there'd be 1 command point cheaper if you have a Canoness with jump pack. However, you also need to spend a miracle dice to make the unit righteous. And when you have limited miracle dice, you will want to make your Paragon Warsuits, your Celestian Sacrosancts, maybe even your Repentia righteous before you make Seraphim righteous. And they don't need +1 movement because they're the fastest unit we have. A unit of 5 Seraphim is often enough to take out enemies holding their home objective, like 10 cultists. A unit of 10 will make sure they are destroyed, but if you want to swoop in and destroy enemies, you could do it from your own deployment zone, striking when you are ready. That is why I may have a squad with Inferno pistols, because I want to strike at something with heavier armor. Some unit that isn't going to be bothered by hand flamers, like Chaos Terminators. And of course, in the Army of Faith, they are a big supporting element. So I would like you to look more into the Army of Faith and the stratagems and tactics you can use because the Seraphim are a key unit. You never have to deep strike, you never have to attach characters, but you have to have a great day of 40k.